Hi, and welcome to month 2 of Fawns & Porter's Urban Basics Block of the Month, featuring these wonderful polka dotted and bright Northcott fabrics. I love all the polka dots. And I'm your host, Jenny K. Parks. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, jennykquilts.com, or you can see me on YouTube at Jenny K. Quilts. All right, so let's get started. We have a lot of real estate to cover today, my friends. We're making 3 blocks: Western Star block, London Roads block, and the Four Corners Star block. So let's jump right in. First, we're going to start with the Western Star block, and this is the corner unit, and let me show you how it all looks when it's all together. And you can see a pretty straightforward assembly here. We're going to sew those two and then sew that. So you have this one right here. All right. And now we need to do the center. So center looks like this. It's a courthouse steps assembly. So you have your very center patch. You're going to add your 2 sides, press, and then add the other sides. And I pressed all of these out, but you could certainly press all of them in. Either way that works for you at this point, that's not going to be much of an issue there. All right, so now we have that one. Now we need to make some of the side units. And they look like this. So the first thing we're going to do is cut this down. And I'll show you. We have to cut it twice. It can be a little scary. So when I have to cut twice, when I have to cut once each way, I do 2 things. One, I line it up so that I can cut in the other direction. Like this is the more awkward direction. I line up the block so that I can get that easily without, like going backwards or something. So I want you to avoid those. And then cut the most awkward angle for you first, okay? So I'm going to put my ruler here, corner to corner, and I'm going to cut across there. Then don't move the block. Don't move the patches here yet. I'm going to line it up and cut in this direction. There we have our all 4 pieces and no awkward angles or cutting that we had to do. Okay, so now we need to put these together in our block. Now, they can get a little bit tricky about what directions things need to go. So I like to have the pattern right out in front of me, or here I have one that we've already made, just so I make sure I'm not stitching it in upside down and backwards, because I have done that before. All right, so let's see. I'm looking at it right here. I've got this piece here, and now I need to do this one. So those are going to go together like so. So I'm going to stitch those together. Now, I'm going to flip it over like this because I want to start sewing right here at this instead of starting to sew right at this point. Because if my machine or anything, might mangle up that point, or if I have to go back and do it more than once, those points can get really mangled up, and I want to avoid that. So I'm going to start sewing at this end. Line it up just right. And of course, if I had several to sew, I would just do them one after another right here. There we go. And I think, actually, I'm going to press towards, oh, no, I'm doing that the wrong way. I'm going to press towards I had it right to begin with. Shouldn't second guess myself. All right. I'm going to press towards the dark. Okay, Now when you press towards the blue polka dots on this one, then we're going to have pieces that can nestle right in together. You see, they're going to snuggle right up next to each other. So let me put those together for you. Now you could certainly pin this if you feel like you have to make a lot of adjustments to it, absolutely. Or pin that little intersection together. Okay, so I have this point, and that's going to be the first part that's under my needle. I'm going to scoot it back just a little bit and kind of make sure it doesn't get munched up. Nope, I'm just going to adjust as I go along and make sure that those seams are interlocking with each other. And I can kind of feel that when I put my finger on it, I can kind of feel that there's no extra bumps and they interlock with each other. And that's what I want. All right. And let me take a peek here. Okay, so I press this towards the yellow, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to press towards the yellow. Now, I really advise on this one giving your seams a little bit of heat to make them more agreeable. We're going to be doing a lot of pressing and a lot of interlocking things, and you know, you just want that extra little help to make that go where you want it to go. All right, so there we have our unit here. Okay, next part. I'll step out here. Oops. Grab the next one. Okay. Now, especially with these where the direction's really going to matter. I mean, you don't want to get this in backwards, right? Well, you could. That'd just be a different block. Where it's going to make a difference, I like to add those in, and you'd have the other little one. Oop. All right. So that's how this one is going to go all together. You just assemble it. So I'll do this section, put these together, and then I put the last one together here. And that is how you do the Western Star block. Okay, on to London Roads block. All right, let me make sure I get the whole pile here. Okay, and this is a kind of fun one, I think. I think it turned out really nicely. So first thing we're going to have is these guys right here. So just again, cut your triangles in the same way that it says in the directions. And you see I've pieced these together just like we did in the Western Star block. But we're going to add it to a solid one here. And because I was finding with my machine, it was easier to sew so I could see this part so it didn't flip over. I just felt like I had a little bit better control if I sewed that direction. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Now, because I am working with bias, I'm very careful not to stretch or pull or move it around, because I don't want to distort the block. But having that starch on there or a best press can really make a difference. All right. And I'm going to press, hang on, I'm going to peek and see what's the best. Yes, okay. The best way to press this, again, is towards the dark. So that's what I'm going to do here. Depending on how everything goes together will determine the best way to press. And I'll tell you, some of these blocks I was putting together, and I thought, oh yeah, I got this just right. And then I went to assemble it, and it worked better to press it in the other direction. So there's nothing wrong with going back and changing that on the fly, because I have done that. There's no shame, it's fine. I'm right there with you. Okay, so I'm gonna lay out this block. And again, I have said I'm a big fan of laying it out because I want to make sure I don't get everything in there upside down and backwards, because I'd be that kind of person. So let me just show all this together. You also have this unit here, which is a strip, and the two right next to it. So you're going to make those in the individual colors. Put this together, and then that one would go right there. I love it. I think it looks so cool. I really enjoyed this block. Now, some tricks for assembling this whole block together. What you want to keep in mind is the pressing directions of these. I'll flip them over. I pressed towards the dark in here, and then that will snuggle in really nicely with these here. But what I do need to show you as well is we have these points that we don't want to lose, right? And the point is the point. So I'm going to put these together so you can see how I match those points up. All right, so I'm going to flip it over this way. And what we need to do, right, I have my X that's marking the spot. We need to do the same trick that we've done before. And I tried lots of different ways to do it when I was making the quilt, how to get everything to line up. So on this one down here, I'm going to show you. I put the pin right through the X, nice and straight up through all the layers. There you go. And then I'm going to mark the line. I tried pinning them, and I thought, okay, I'm going to pin this at exactly 1/4 inch and put them together, but I couldn't always tell where that was going to be. So I tried that way. I tried then just repressing everything at the time, and that made it really, that was a pain. So all right, so I'm going to pin through this X, through all the layers. And I need just enough so I can see there. All right. And then, even though these will snuggle in nicely, because I'm also trying to aim for that, I'm going to pin it. I'm going to pin it into place. I think I will feel a little bit more secure with it there. It's kind of the more things you have to fiddle with, let's just pin. Get those right in there with each other. It didn't quite feel right. Let's check it again. There we go. That feels better to me. Okay. And just go right along. And if you do encounter a seam that you flipped up, you could just snip that part of the seam allowance and make it lie flat. All right, so as I'm getting closer, you can look at this and see this is not, the whole thing's not lining up exactly 1/4 inch, and that's okay. That's why I have my line there. My line will help me with that. There we go. Then sometimes I'll kind of like readjust a little bit with the one that's underneath. Get it to line up at 1/4 inch, and I'm aiming too. I'm aiming again. I'm watching where my eye goes, that it's to the next point. So I'm kind of lining up that point as I go. Oh, let me take out my pen.